All right. So let's talk about whether a narcissist misses you or feels regret after you leave. It's just an interesting sort of thing because you leave a narcissist and you're done with the relationship and you're on the other side of it. You finally got away and you're left wondering, what are they thinking? I mean, and if you really want to know more about what a narcissist is feeling when they realize that life totally sucks without you, by the way, I have a whole video on that. You can definitely check out my video on that topic. But you have to really understand that a narcissist personality is governed primarily by, like, everything is filtered through themselves. They really are like 2-year-olds stuck in an adult body. They haven't like evolved. Somehow they got stuck. They're like arrested development and they can't see beyond themselves. And so it's scarcity mentality to the extreme. They don't really have a sense of self. And so they can only kind of see themselves. They don't really miss you necessarily as a person. They miss the idea of you. They miss what you did for them. They miss the state of you being around them. They don't necessarily miss you as a person, and they certainly aren't sorry for what they did necessarily. They don't have the capacity or the ability to feel like genuine regret, genuine shame, genuine feeling of sorrow for what they may have done to you, like really being sorry. They just don't have that feeling of remorse, like if they might have cheated on you or if they might have been hurtful to you in some way. They don't go, wow, I really damaged them. I really am sorry for hurting them or the pain that I may have caused that other person. They don't have the ability to feel that. They may regret the fact that they don't have you anymore, that you don't exist in their world, but it's more like because they don't have you, but not because of what they did to you. So, they lost their narcissistic supply, so it's really from their own filter, from their own self. So no, they can't truly miss you in the sense that you want them to miss you, or as you and I may want to understand that term. They certainly don't feel like the same maybe guilt that you and I might feel. They just don't have that same sort of feeling of guilt, or hurt or pain. It's really not insofar as because they can only feel it within themselves. It's not what they can feel necessarily as far as on your side of the equation. It's only on their side of the equation. Because remember that they only can feel their own pain. The way I look at it is it's almost like as if a person is in, they're starving and, they're just looking for food and they just, they can only think about their own starvation and they can't think about anybody else's starvation or anybody else needing food. Or it's like if you have a really horrible toothache, all they can think about is their own pain at that moment. They can't think about anybody else's pain. It really is scarcity mentality to the extreme. And that's kind of how they are. I mean, that's why they don't even want to give anybody anything, even the smallest little things. They just don't want to give up. And so when that other person is gone, it's really more like they think of you as a possession. And so they miss the possession, but they don't miss you as the person. It's like they miss the jars of cans of something that's lined up on the shelf, but they don't miss you as the person. They miss the possession. They miss the thing being in their lives. They miss what you could do for them. They certainly miss what you were doing for them, but they don't miss you necessarily as the person. And so understanding that, I think, should certainly help you, because they certainly don't feel regret. They certainly don't feel that guilt. They certainly don't feel sorry for what they may have done to you. I think that's really helpful, especially in negotiations as well. I mean, a lot of times people in negotiations, what I've seen, especially, you empaths out there, you think, oh, I don't want to hurt them. I'll give this up. If I do this, if I give this, they'll see how good I'm being. They'll see that I'm being fair. I don't care about that. They'll just take it. They'll just take it, and then they'll just like, whatever. They'll just keep moving on from there. They don't go, oh, they already gave me this piece, so I'll give this piece. No, they just take that, and that's it. So then now you've already given up something, and that's that. So you don't want to do that in a negotiation. They don't feel any sense of regret or shame or guilt or anything like that. So best just to move on.
So how does a narcissist handle rejection or no contact? Well, as I said, not well, and that may actually be an understatement, because the thing with narcissists is that they have no inner sense of value. They need to get all of their value from the external, and how they do that is in the form of what we call narcissistic supply. So they're going to try to suck supply from everywhere that they possibly can. And the only reason why they attach themselves to people is because they're looking to feed that beast, that never-ending black hole that's inside of them, that must be fed with narcissistic supply. So narcissistic supply is that external sense of value that they try to cover up their inner sense of fragility and having no value, and that tiny little ego that's inside of them. They try to lather a big cover up on top of it, and they do that in the form of narcissistic supply. So supply can be anything in the form of compliments, money, big house, big car, the right spouse, the right friends, living in the right place, a huge bank account, big salary. All of those kinds of things feed a narcissist's ego and gives them that external sense of value that they so desperately need. The other form of narcissistic supply can also be devaluing somebody, debasing them, degrading them, cutting them down, judging them, making them squirm. All of those things, delight the narcissist in a way, because it gives them a sense of control. It makes them feel like they're better than you. And so that also feeds that beast, that necessary beast of feeling that they need for endless supply. So when a narcissist chooses a target, which, by the way, if you think that you might be a target of a narcissist, you should definitely check out my video on Are You a Narcissist Magnet? And I'll drop a link to that below. But if you are a narcissist magnet and you have been a target or a victim of a narcissist, then you should know that the reason why they selected you, they chose you, is because they felt that they could get supply from you. So a lot of times they choose empaths. They choose people who are kind, who are considerate, who are very loving, who are going to be willing to help them in some way. And they're seeing, okay, I can get value from this person. Because remember, your value to a narcissist is just the value that you can bring to them. It doesn't have anything to do with, giving you anything. It's like, okay, how can I suck value out of this person? It might be that you look the right way, or that you come from the right people, or that you know the right people, or that you have the right status, or whatever it is. This, because they can't connect on a real level. They can't truly feel empathy or care for another person. So they just want to know, what can you do for me? So your value to a narcissist is just the value that you bring to them. And as long as you're bringing value to them, then you get to stay in their space. If you're no longer bringing value to them, then they really don't have any use for you. But they can be discarding you and still have use for you because they can make you squirm. So if you turn around and you reject that narcissist and you go no contact, you are basically cutting off their supply. And so it's not going to go well for them, or you, actually, mostly for you. Because they have this narcissistic injury, and that injury is that scab, that little inner person, that frightened child, because something happened to a narcissist at some point in their life, probably their childhood, which caused them to have trauma and broke something inside of their head. And there's that little bit of narcissistic, that narcissistic injury is inside that little person. And so what happens is, when somebody leaves a narcissist and triggers that narcissistic injury is inflamed in some way, then it can trigger narcissistic rage. And narcissistic rage looks like, I'm pretty sure you know what it looks like, but it can look like basically an adult having a 2-year-old tantrum, screaming, yelling, intimidation tactics, lying about you, smear campaigns, going after you. And if they're a covert narcissist, they're going to be lining up their flying monkeys, trying to get everybody against you. All narcissists, dealing gaslighting. If you want to know more about that, you should check out my video on gaslighting techniques. But the other thing that they're going to do is potentially violence, stalking, threats of violence, especially if they are a malignant narcissist. A malignant narcissist is the scariest form of narcissist, and I have a video on that you're going to want to check out too. They're the ones that actually have an overlay of an antisocial personality and paranoia, and so they tend to be even take rejection or no contact so much worse. So one thing that you should know is that rejection is the thing that narcissists fear the most. That's the one thing they do not want to happen to them. And so if you reject them, then that's like in some ways the worst thing that could possibly happen for them, because you're taking away, you're snatching away that oxygen that they need, that narcissistic supply. You're taking it from them. And they really think that that's the worst thing that you could possibly do. So they're probably going to go after you, or they might just try to punish you in other ways. But punishment is definitely something that they are going to want to be plotting. They're going to want to get you back. They're going to want to make sure you pay for, making them look bad in any way, shape, or form, or rejecting them. How could you possibly do that? And if this sounds like you and you're dealing with a narcissist in your life and you are so ready to get them out of your life, give me an "I'm ready" in the comments. If you're lucky, the narcissist might just never speak to you again, and maybe they think that's your punishment. If that happens to you, thank your lucky stars, because most narcissists don't take rejection and no contact in that way. As many of you know who've watched a lot of my videos, I've had to deal with a couple of narcissists in my own life, not as husbands, thank God, but as people who were close enough to me to wreak havoc and cause damage. And I know for me, what they ended up doing is, I try to go no contact myself, which is something I highly recommend that you do, is go no contact as fast as you possibly can. But then you're going to experience all of these things. And remember when I tell you this, that narcissists are the worst right before they're getting ready to give up. But sometimes their ego, they think they look more confident by going after you. And so I know in my own life, I've had to deal with a couple of covert narcissists. And so, They felt entitled to do certain things to me, or go through other people to try to get to me, or get me, riled up, or get me upset about things. One of them was an extended member of my family, and so, tried to use family members to go after me in certain ways. And it's just, it's not pleasant. It's not fun. It's awful to deal with. But it's definitely worse to continue to have that narcissist in your life. And please remember that narcissists are very clever. They know how to bring you in. They know how to love bomb you. That's what they did in the first place, to love bomb you. And so they're going to try to do whatever they can to love bomb you back in. Oh, come on back. Things are going to be different. It's going to be better. Because even if they were on the verge of rejecting you, they can't be rejected. They don't want to be the ones being rejected. So they may try to figure out a way to claw their way back into your life. Don't fall for it. Don't buy it. Just keep on walking, move forward. Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. So once you've already seen how they can be, don't expect them to change. They can't be rehabilitated. They can pretend to behave. They know what good behavior looks like. It doesn't mean that you're going to get them to actually care and have empathy. So there's a lot of people in this world, 7.5 billion people. Find other people to hang out with, find other people to be around. So when it's time to reject that narcissist and go no contact, expect these types of behaviors, but just hold firm, because you can do this. Just hang on, don't give in, don't give up, just keep on walking.
Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life, then they turned out to be your worst nightmare, and then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell? Well, I developed something called the SLAY method of negotiating with narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized, high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I will show you how. So you are ready to reject a narcissist, go no contact with the narcissist. What do you need to know? All right, so no contact lets you know that you are onto them. They now know that their secret is out, right? Because, they think that you have been snowed by them. They think that you have been love bombed by them. They think that you have been conditioned by them. And remember that they have no inner sense of value. And they have this deep, deep, deep shame. And so they're constantly trying to cover that up. They kind of lead these double lives. I do have a whole video on that, why narcissists lead double lives, which you can definitely check out. But they have these deep sense of, no inner value whatsoever, and deep sense of self-hatred, and they don't want you to know that. And so when you go to leave them, that's like their worst case scenario. They don't want to be abandoned. That's like the last thing that they want, even though they've treated you horribly the whole time, by the way, which is the whole irony of the whole thing. In a way, like, you think, didn't you want me to leave you? Like, you hate me. But yet when you do try to leave, they try to make you feel guilty. What are you leaving for? I mean, it's such a cycle of toxicity. Is awful. I mean, the whole time you've been there, they've been horrible to you. But when you go to leave, then now they really know that, the jig is up. And they do start to feel a sense of regret But they're not going to let you know that, because for them, like, this world is very black and white. And once you leave, you become public enemy number one. And, that shame is like so much worse. That self-hatred, that self-loathing that they feel is just so much worse for them. And it really kind of destroys them in a lot of ways. But they do go into this self-defense mode. And it becomes like this war. They have this narcissistic injury that's deep inside of them that was created when they were very young, and it gets exposed. And when you leave them, is like a scab is ripped off. And now that narcissistic rage comes flying out, and they've got to make sure that they get you before you get them. And so they want to make sure to the world, you look like the loser, because they can't look like the loser. You have to look like the loser, because how they look to the world is everything. So you have to look like you're the loser. They want to make sure they take you down before you can take them down. So if it's a divorce situation, and they're going to go into this annihilation mode, and they'll file all kinds of stuff maybe in the family law court. I mean, depending on the type of narcissist they are, it could be crazy motions. It could be all kinds of false things, false allegations. They could threaten you. They could line up flying monkeys. They could get all these people to try to believe lies against you. I mean, depending on the type of narcissist that they are, how malignant they are, how psychopathic they are, how much they really hate you, how vindictive they are. But the thing is, you got to remember that you have to slay it. Slay meaning my form of slay and your form of slay. But slay for my form is strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. Strategy, leverage, anticipate what they're going to do and be 2 steps ahead of them and focus on you, your mental health, your case. The best defense is a good offense. And 90% of winning is your mental, is knowing that you can win before you even get there. So you can do it. You absolutely can, but you just got to make sure that you are prepared ahead of time. You absolutely can win, but you've got to be prepared. And remember, the best leverage is going to be figuring out what form of supply is going to be more important for them to protect than the supply that they get from jerking you around. So what supply is going to be more important for them to protect, which is always going to be how they look, than the supply that they get from, jerking you around or making you miserable, manipulating you. I mean, because that's always, some sort of supply that they get as well. So just make sure that they see that you aren't being baited, that you aren't being manipulated, that you aren't moved by their craziness, because they get supply from that. And then just keep walking, right? Don't look back. Don't even twitch. Don't even switch. Don't even move, because that gives them supply. And remember that you can slay this. And I want you to write in the comments right now, I can slay this. Because you can. You absolutely can. And that's what the narcissist reaction is to rejection or no contact. Remember, the narcissist is more afraid of you than you are of them. They absolutely are. And they are worse before they get better. So just anticipate that. But that's the reaction to rejection or no contact. I mean, it's not going to be good. You know that it's not going to be good. So just expect that. So what? They can act like a 2-year-old, like a toddler on the floor. So what? You know what? You're bigger, you're better, you can do it, right? We're diving into the topic today. What narcissists do when you're not looking. What are they doing? The first thing they'll be doing, they're going to be stalking you. I mean, maybe not openly. Some of them might be doing it openly. Hopefully not. If they are, definitely call the police or whatever you need to do to protect yourself. But they're going to be looking at your social media. They're going to be trying to figure out what it is that you're up to. They might send out their little minions to go check out and see what you're doing. That's why you want to try to block them on social media if you can. Block them, change all your passwords. Make sure that you change passwords on your social media, on all your logins, maybe even monthly for a while if you need to. Go no contact as soon as you can, for sure. They're going to be checking out to see what it is that you're doing, if they can. They're not going to take it lying down, even if they are walking away from you. That's the crazy thing, because they still want to get their form of supply from you if they can. They're going to want to keep their new form of supply, but they also want to keep the old form of supply from you if they can. They like it all. What else are they going to be doing while they're gone and you've left, okay? And you've said, okay, this is fine. They're going to be telling everybody that they left you, that it was fine, that this is what they wanted anyway, that it's a good thing, because they want to preserve some level of whatever. So now they want to make sure that you get smeared before you can smear them. They want to expose you before you can expose them. They want to take you down before you can take them down. So this is where the birth of that smear campaign comes in. They got to rewrite history. They've got to get everybody on board. So brace yourself for this one. Even if they say, oh, I want this to be nice. I want this to be as good as possible. Let's part as friends. You can't believe this. I mean, if they were lying when they were with you, whether it was as business partners or as a boss or a colleague or whoever it was, they're not going to be suddenly wonderful at the end. It doesn't make any sense. So you can't believe that they're going to be. They will tarnish your reputation. They will spread lies about you, and they will recruit those quote unquote flying monkeys, the people that they want to be like on their side in their army because they're all insecure. They don't want to feel like they're by themselves. They want you to feel abandoned and alone. They want you to feel isolated. They want you to feel ganged up on. They want you to feel bullied. They want you to feel like you're wrong, they're right, and they're higher and you're lower. It's crucial for them to stay strong and you're the weak one. And so they want to be the one doing all the manipulating. And so they want to be the one using their tactics on you. And so they will line up their smear campaign. And is it going to be open and like this? Maybe, but maybe not. It might be in terms of care. That's how a covert narcissist tends to be. A covert narcissist tends to be more in terms of care. So it might look more like, oh, I'm so concerned about Susie. I'm so worried about her. And, she's been so depressed. She's just been, I don't know how she's going to make it. I don't know if Susie's going to be able to take care of the kids. I want to help her. I just want to help her and just be supportive. So it comes through like that, even though, the person's really smearing Susie in terms of care. You got to be careful about those ones, those covert ones, even though they're smearing the person. So sometimes it's more like that. Sometimes the smearing is in terms of guilt. Oh, I can't believe that they left me here all alone with no money. And you're left with plenty in the bank account and you never really left in the first place, but they make it seem like you left with nothing. There's that kind of smearing too. There's the guilt kind of smearing, playing the victim card, making it seem like telling everybody who will listen, like you abandoned them, you abandoned the kids, they're the suffering one, you're the heartless one, you ran off,
designed to guilt trip the whole world, that sort of thing. There's that as well. Anybody who'll listen, you're heartless, you're abandoned, you're cruel, you're they're the victim. So there's the smearing, rewriting history. Then what else is going to happen while you're gone? They're going to be brooding. They're going to be depressed. They're going to be by themselves, thinking how horrible it's been, rewriting history. They were so good. They gave you everything. How could you be doing this? They might be sending you messages. I can't believe you're abandoning me or this company or this family or this thing. So they might be trying to send you something. They might be trying to send you something that might be, oh, that wasn't meant for you. Getting my cancer results back this week. Oh, was that for you? Oh, I didn't mean to send that to you. Oh, you wouldn't want to be worried about that. Don't you worry yourself about that. Just to try to hook you in, try to get you interested, trying to suck you back into the whole zone of drama. Stalk you, tell everybody how awful it's been, tell everybody you left, plot and plan, feel sorry for themselves, rewrite history, smear you, look for ways to plot at you, tell their story to you, tell everybody who will listen, look for ways to plot at you, look for ways to smear you, tell everybody who will listen. But fear not, my warriors. I've got a little something for you. If you want strategies to stay strong during no contact, I got something for you. While they're gone, and then they suddenly appear, that's called hoovering. So what you're going to do when you see that little Hoover DM pop up in your phone or in your Instagram or in your Facebook or in your email or whatever, you're going to see it and you're going to go, oh, I know what you are. Oh, no, I'm not falling for that. So you're just going to say, boundaries. And so I want you to put that in the comments below, boundaries, right now, boundaries. Be aware of such little plots and twists and plans. You're not going to fall for it. Another thing is, that little guilt trip thing through families and friends where they try to use your family and friends to guilt trip you. They'll have your cousin come. Oh, she's not doing so well. Can't you come and talk to her? Can't you just try? Or, a business partner or somebody that try to communicate through somebody close to you so they can try to understand what's going on. No, don't allow it. Keep to your boundaries. Another thing that they will try to do is they'll see that you're not responding. They attempt to get at you by completely ghosting you, completely getting you to get back at you through not responding at all. Stay strong. Focus on your healing journey. That's what you need to focus yourself on. There you have it. That's what narcissists do when you go no contact with them. They're going to try every trick in the book, but you're going to be armed with this knowledge and you're going to stick strong to your self-care and you can rise above this manipulation. Everything they do is a manipulation. Remember that.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real. Therapy can feel like a really big investment, but your mental health is just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost $100 to $250 per session, but with BetterHelp, you can save up to 50% per session on average. You pay a flat weekly fee, which means more peace of mind for less. Therapy should feel accessible, not like a luxury. BetterHelp gives you that, all from the comfort from your home. And with over 30,000 therapists to choose from and 5 million people served globally, this is the world's largest online therapy platform, and you can switch therapists at any time. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/negotiate today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/negotiate. All right, so let's dive in. Let's start by unpacking the dual nature of narcissistic awareness. On one level, narcissists have an acute sense of when their actions might be perceived as wrong. They know that because you know that they're hiding, right? You know that they hide their behavior. And this is largely driven by their need to have this perfect image on the outside, which I call, that diamond level supply, their image, right? And they're highly attuned to social cues and reactions, which helps them gauge when they've crossed that line. Okay, so they've got to have this perfect image. But on a deeper, more intrinsic level, narcissists don't fully grasp the true impact of their actions. Okay. And this lack of genuine understanding can be attributed to their profound lack of empathy and their propensity to rewrite reality to fit their narrative. Example one is the silent treatment. So one of the most common tactics that narcissists engage in is the silent treatment. How many of you have been the recipient of the silent treatment? Give me a totally in the comments, or an I have in the comments. Imagine a situation where a narcissist decides to give their partner a silent treatment. So you have had some sort of an argument, a disagreement, you've gotten into something, right? On a superficial level, totally they know that, okay, something's going on. Maybe their partner has been hurt in some way. They see pain, they see confusion, they see distress, yet they justify it in various ways. So one thing is victim mentality. They might believe that they are the true victim in the situation and that the other person deserves this treatment. So, okay, you deserve it. Another one is that they see it as a means of control, that how I can dominate this person, maintaining their sense of superiority. And another one is just pure on deniability. I'm just denying that this is going on. And they just deny to themselves that their actions were hurtful. So they just completely convince themselves that the other side's fault for provoking them, that if they hadn't done what they did, that it wouldn't have happened. And so therefore they're justified in their behavior. And so despite recognizing that the other side is experiencing some sort of a negative something going on over there, they just don't internalize this knowledge as doing something bad because it just doesn't fit with their self-image of being infallible. Another example is gaslighting. So gaslighting is another way, okay, they know but don't know that they've done something bad. So they engage in this manipulative tactic. So for those of you who don't know what gaslighting is, when they distort reality to make the other side think that they're crazy. You're saying the sky's blue, it's very clearly blue, but they're like, nope, it's green, it's definitely green, right? And you're like, okay, I'm definitely going crazy. So they're trying to make their victim doubt their own perceptions and reality and their own sanity. One way is they're telling their partner that they're too sensitive or they're overreacting when they're expressing hurt or frustration. And how a narcissist's awareness plays out is intentional manipulation. They know they're twisting the truth to manipulate the partner. They know they're doing that. But what they will do is they rationalize it. They justify their actions by believing they're just correcting their partner's flawed perceptions. So they justify themselves that their partner needs that correction because they're being too emotional or they're being irrational. So while they're aware that they're manipulating reality, they don't see it as wrong because in their mind, they have to do it. They need to. They have to do it in order to maintain control, or it serves their purpose in some way. And so somehow in their warped sense of reality, though it's justified. Like, if you're with me so far, if you're with me so far, I say I'm with you. I get it. And it's totally warped, but so they know they're wrong, but they don't know when they've done something bad. So here's another way. Public humiliation. Public humiliation is a horrible thing. So they do this, they use this to assert their dominance. So they ridicule somebody like a coworker during a meeting for making a mistake. They're aware that they've done this. They recognize that it's harmful, and they see that this person is embarrassed. They see this person might be humiliated, and they see discomfort. Their actions caused this, but they perceive that it's justified because they're putting this person in their place in some way. And so they just kind of deflect it and claim that they're just being honest or providing necessary feedback. And they recognize that their behavior caused harm. They don't internalize this, even though it caused harm, because it aligns with their need to maintain control, or their need to go, well, this person needs to be corrected in some way. It's a learning lesson for them. And so in their mind, it's, I'm doing what needs to be done. Another one is withholding affection. It's a subtle but impactful tactic that they use. So they withhold affection, they withhold approval. They suddenly become cold, they suddenly become distant toward a partner or person without any explanation. And so all of a sudden you're like, where are you? What are you doing? How they process this behavior, even though they know that they're doing this, and they know that the person is craving their approval, and they know that this withdrawal is going to cause distress on them. And in some ways, they love this because they get supply from it. They want this person to come back to them. They convince themselves that it's a good thing because this person needs to earn back their affection in some way. They deny that it's harmful because it's almost like a reframe for them. They kind of reframe it as maybe they did something to them, or it's something that needed to be done. And they just don't see it as wrong. Like, they see it as, I needed to do this because it serves their manipulative goals in some way. Somehow they'll reframe it in their mind and come back to how they justify it in their mind and live with themselves so that they can sleep at night. Okay. So another one is triangulation, how they, smear people or line up their flying monkeys, the people that are like their army of people that they have against for them and against you, their target, their victim, bringing in these third parties to create conflict, to create jealousy, rivalry. And they might even have this person like where they're praising somebody in front of somebody else and trying to make somebody feel smaller so that this other person, they're beefing this other person up to make somebody else feel smaller. And they know that it's creating maybe jealousy or maybe insecurity in you or this other person. And they know that they're manipulating. So again, they know that they're doing something bad, but they don't really know because, again, they don't have a full awareness of the impact of the hurt that they're causing. They don't have a full awareness of the deep wounds that they're causing. And they justify themselves a lot of times because they're like, well, I'm doing this to get this person to meet standards or to be better. They don't understand the emotional turmoil that it causes. And again, it's to maintain dominance, to maintain control, to maintain superiority. In a lot of ways, they kind of get off on it. They enjoy seeing people squirm. They enjoy being the one who's manipulating people. It's almost like the little green army men with the, in their kingdom in some ways. They don't see people as people in some ways. They're just kind of like little people on a game board. And if you're dealing with this, I really highly encourage you to get help, get the support that you need, because it's just too much a lot of times to deal with. Join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And if you are dealing with this, you really do need to start documenting everything that you're doing. So I have a really great tool that you can start with, which is docthenarc.com. You can go get it. It tells you everything that you need to start documenting. Start documenting everything you need to document, because it will help you tremendously to just start there. The next thing is blame shifting. Blame shifting is a tactic when the narcissist deflects responsibility for their actions onto somebody else. For example, if a narcissist forgets an important date, they might accuse their partner of not reminding them. Their awareness is recognition of fault. Like they know they're at fault, but refuse to accept responsibility. Defense justification. They rationalize their partner should have reminded them. So they shift the blame onto the partner, and then they deny that they're the problem. Okay. They want the other person to be the one who takes responsibility. It's not me, not I. I always say, not I, said the redhead, right? Again, I would say projection and deflection, lying and denying. That's their MO all the time. If you're a renter, this is a no-brainer. You earn points on groceries and travel, so why not on rent? With Built, paying rent finally pays off. There's no cost to join, and just by paying rent, you unlock flexible points that can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, and your next Lyft ride, and more. When you pay rent through Built, you unlock two powerful benefits. First, you earn one of the industry's most valuable points on rent every month, no matter where you live or who your landlord is. Your rent now works for you. Second, you gain access to your exclusive neighborhood benefits in your city. These include extra points on dining out, complimentary post-workout shakes, and unique experiences only Built members can access. And when you're ready to travel, Built points can be converted to miles and hotel points. Your rent can literally take you places. Start paying rent through Built and take advantage of your neighborhood benefits by going to joinbuilt.com/negotiate. That's joinbilt.com/negotiate. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. That's joinbuilt.com/negotiate. Narcissists are never sorry, and they don't feel guilt for what they have done to you, even though they might say they're sorry. They might say they feel guilty, but let's go into this. I mean, are they really truly sorry? And why don't they feel guilty for the harm that they inflict? This could be one of the most perplexing and frankly heartbreaking realizations. But you have to understand what's going on inside that narcissist's mind. You have to know that their primary goal is to uphold their inflated image. It's this facade that's going on outside here. And any acknowledgement of guilt or remorse threatens that image, threatens that protective layer, that facade that they very painstakingly are trying to take care of. It's that protective shield that they're building around themselves and deflecting any blame or responsibility, because they don't want you to know what's going on inside of here, which is this scared little ego that is going on, this shame that's happening inside of here. So all that's going on outside of here is to protect what's really happening inside of here. And so that's what's happening here. And so anytime they might say sorry, it's what I call a faux apology. It's really just to manipulate. So, they might say sorry sometimes, but it's really just to manipulate the situation to get something that they want at that particular time. It's not because they're actually sorry in that moment. The second thing is that they're driven by their need for external validation, this constant desire for admiration and approval outweighs any internal reflection on their actions. Even if they say they're I thought about it and I am thinking, all of that is just a manipulation to get you to stay, to get you to stop doing what you're doing at that point. Any thought of admitting guilt is, it just doesn't fit with their quest for this need for an endless amount of supply to fill this black hole that's inside of them, and it just won't ever be filled. I mean, the only narcissists that I've ever heard of that can be healed like that are the ones that end up like just completely hitting bottom, and it's pretty rare, unfortunately. So I mean, it's very sad. And if you agree with me, put "so sad" in the comments right now, because it is pretty sad. But you can't change them. It's hard enough to change yourself, but you can't change them. Instead of trying to focus on changing them, focus on changing yourself. Focus on changing the person that you can do something about. You can't change it and you can't cure it, right? It's like the 3 C's. The next thing is they have a complete lack of empathy. I mean, one of the hallmarks of narcissism is that lack of empathy. And without empathy, there is no emotional connection to the pain, to the understanding of the emotional wrath, the emotional suffering, the emotional wreckage that they are causing, that pain and suffering that they're causing. And that disconnect allows them to act without considering the emotional fallout. They're not going to feel guilty about that. They don't even remember about that. I mean, if you try to bring it up, why are you bringing stuff up from, 2 years ago or 3 years ago? But yet they'll bring up things from 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I mean, it's such a double standard, right? And so why are you living in this craziness, this toxic stew? It's never going to serve you. Your needs are never going to be met. That's the thing that you need to remember. So it's always going to be self-serving for them. And if you are dealing with this, you're going to need a support system. So, join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. I have a sponsor here if you don't have access to therapy, which is BetterHelp. So you can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. We receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to help and support that you can trust. So the next thing is deflection and gaslighting. If you ever heard the phrase, "It's not me, it's you," it's the narcissist mantra. By deflecting blame, I always say projection and deflection, lying and denying. That's like their whole mantra all the time, because they're constantly trying to make sure that nothing ever touches them. They cannot constantly make sure, that's why they're never sorry. And they're constantly not feeling guilt about what they did to you, because they cannot confront their actions or feeling of guilt, because they're constantly gaslighting. They're constantly avoiding that. So they're pushing it off on other people, because they cannot take responsibility for their actions. So no, they don't feel guilty. No, they're not sorry. And so how do you respond? It's crucial that you not try to seek validation from them. I always say, forget about closure. Forget about trying to get them to see your side. Forget about trying to get them to acknowledge that, that you did anything for them, because they're not going to do it. They're just going to make them mad. If you try to get them to meet your needs, it's just going to make them mad. It just further empowers them. You just need to work on yourself, work on your healing. Anytime you try to get them to meet your needs, it triggers them. That triggers them. Work on doing what you need to do to heal yourself. It's never going to be healing for you, right? So warriors, remember that. 5 unspoken regrets of narcissists, they don't talk about it because they don't want you to know that they can be weak. But they have regrets sometimes. They're not the same kinds of regrets that regular reasonable people have. Regular reasonable people can regret things like normal people have, but these are their own special kinds of regrets. And I'm going to talk about them today in this video. So you're going to want to watch all the way till the end because there's a special kind of regret that's only reserved for narcissists. And I'm going to be talking about at the end here. All right. So number one, they regret that they can't love themselves more. I know. But this is actually, we should all be able to love ourselves in a certain way. Self love is a really important thing, but this is not a normal type of thing, right? With narcissists, they truly have no inner sense of value. That's what it really means to be a narcissist. They're just like a shell inside, it's an empty space. They feel truly empty inside, and that's so unfortunate. That's why they're constantly trying to layer on these feelings of it, external value from external sources, which we call narcissistic supply. But it's almost like a sieve inside, or this, there's just no way to catch that feeling, this empty black hole. And so, you're constantly trying to fill the black hole. They want you to fill it. So you're left feeling totally and utterly depleted. They're left still feeling empty. And, it's this endless cycle, unfortunately. I always say that they're sort of like the hollow chocolate Easter bunnies. They look very pretty on the outside, but inside there's nothing going on. And unfortunately, they really do regret being unable to love themselves more. They can fake it. They're very, very good at mirroring what's going on. They're very, very good at reading people. It's kind of a survival skill that they've developed since childhood. But deep down, they just don't feel worthy of that love. And, so you empaths out there, I see you out there, you think that you're going to be able to love them back to health, and you feel like you're going to be able to give them all this love. And it's interesting because I was actually talking to somebody yesterday who was interviewing me, and this person was talking about how she had been in a relationship with a narcissist, and she was like, well, I hadn't grown up with a whole lot of love in my life, or unconditional love, and I just thought, well, I don't need a whole lot. I can just give, and I won't need to get a whole lot in return. So I'll just give and give and give to this person, and it'll be okay. And I'll love this person back to health. And I'm going to prove to this person how much I love them. And it's so common with these empaths and narcissists and how they end up finding each other. I actually have a whole video on the empath and the narcissist, which you guys can watch that video as well. But, they just often feel this great deal of regret that they're never going to be able to truly experience that internal feeling of self-love. So that's number one, that they have this unspoken regret that they're never going to be able to love themselves more. So that's number one. Number two, they really do regret the underlying feeling that they have of being so insecure. They do know that internally they have this insecurity. They're constantly trying to cover it up. And obviously, all of us have insecurities. All of us have this feeling of trying to look good, avoid looking bad. Who wants to have that? I mean, we all kind of have that to a certain degree. And narcissism is, on a spectrum. But if you truly have narcissistic personality disorder, this insecurity leads them to engage in defensive, aggressive behavior, which causes them to put people down, start arguments, especially on, holidays, people's birthdays, if they feel that they're going to be threatened in some way, if they feel like they're not going to be the center of attention, all of the things that narcissists do, right? That cause them to be narcissists. And ultimately, it ends up damaging their relationships and creating unpleasant environments for everybody around them and everybody involved. And ultimately, their insecurities many times sabotage their relationships and sabotage a lot of things for them in a lot of ways that they sometimes don't even realize, because people just don't want to be around them. They do regret this deep down feeling of insecurity. They have this split thing going on because they have this true self and this false self going on constantly. And this false self is this outside personality that they've created, and the true self is the one internally that they have. So that's number two. Number three is sometimes they regret not being able to control their emotions, because depending on the level of narcissist that you're dealing with, they really don't have the ability to control their emotions. How a narcissist was formed, created, was during childhood when they were constantly exposed to trauma. Their brain was in this fight or flight mode. When all of us are in fight or flight mode, our brain emits chemicals in order to allow us to be better, stronger, or faster, so that we can run, so that we can fight, so that we can, take care of ourselves. But those chemicals caused their brains to actually have, arrested development, that limbic part of their brain. And what happens with narcissists is that part of their brain, that limbic part of their brain, was not then fully formed when they are then presented with situations where they feel that they are threatened. Then that narcissistic injury then becomes triggered, and that narcissistic rage then comes flying out. And you are dealing with somebody who is not rational and not reasonable, and they then are being controlled by their emotions and not by being a rational, reasonable adult at that point. And it can lead to outbursts of anger and hurtful words, and they say things in the heat of the moment. And this lack of emotional control can cause them to be unstable and unpredictable, which can be obviously very off-putting to others. I think that sometimes they do regret that because, again, it sabotages relationships. It can sabotage business deals for them at times. Many times we'll never regret that. They'll say, oh, that's how I wanted it. I didn't like that person. That's how it should have gone in the first place. So that person's a loser, or whatever it is that they're going to say about it. They will oftentimes regret that that's how it ended up going down. And they'll oftentimes regret their behavior in that moment. So that is another unspoken regret of a narcissist. So 5 unspoken regrets of narcissists. Number 3 is they regret not being able to control their emotions. Number 4 is they do regret that they can't empathize with others. And this is something that they do recognize, that regular, reasonable people, normal human beings, do have that ability. And, covert narcissists do develop the ability to mirror or say the right things. So if they're a true narcissist, they know that they don't actually feel it inside, And if you're with a covert narcissist for a long period of time, you inherently know that they don't actually feel it. You have that feeling in your gut that that person doesn't actually care. You can tell when somebody truly cares, or when somebody's actually just going through the motions or saying the words. A true narcissist just doesn't actually care if somebody's child died or dog got run over in the street or whatever. They don't actually care about those things, and they have to learn how to pretend to feel things for others or fit into society in that way, because they don't actually, they have to remember to say the right things or remember to care or know what it looks like to be understanding. Otherwise they know that they're not going to fit in, so they wish and have regret about the fact that they don't actually have the ability to empathize with others. It can also make them quick to anger, slow to forgive, which again can damage relationships. And, so they oftentimes don't have a lot of good relationships, a lot of friends. Many people don't hang around with them for very long because of their inability to be able to form good relationships or have closeness with others. Because obviously, if you don't truly care about people, many people aren't going to hang around with you for very long, right? So we've gotten through the first 5 unspoken regrets of narcissists. So recapping, number 1 was they regret not being able to love themselves more. Number 2 is they regret being so insecure. Number 3 was they regret not being able to control their emotions. Number 4 was they regret not being able to empathize with others. Who can guess what number 5 is? And by the way, if you agree with me so far, give me a yes in the comments. Totally agree, right? Give me a yes in the comments. You know that everything I said, I speak the truth so far, right? Ready for number 5? All right, number 5 is they regret not being able to truly connect with other people. And that's really what it's all about, because we all want to feel that true love and connection with other human beings on the planet. We all do want to be able to inherently feel that. And unfortunately, as a narcissist, it is extremely difficult for them to be able to feel that. And I know you guys are mostly empaths out there watching me, and you feel like you can save them or whatever it is that you're doing, but you're literally going to choke yourself out if you feel like you can do that, because you can't. You are going to drown trying to save them. You can't, because they can't be rehabilitated. It's sort of like an addict or something. They have to want to save themselves, and they can't. So you got to save yourself. You got to put your own oxygen mask on here first. The way that you do that is by self-care, taking care of yourself, putting boundaries on in place.